Ladies and gentlemen, another character, another HSR analysis. Gepard is the one we're looking at today. Mr. Knight in shining armor, blonde haired, handsome man, if you want to call him that. But we are looking at Gepard today, and he is an ice preservation character. One of the only, or one of the two rather, preservation characters in the game. And what does preservation mean? Preservation is essentially your tank, your defensive support slash tank, your aggro holder, your shield provider, and all those sorts of things. And yeah, as I said, there's only two of these in the game. You have Gepard, as well, I believe, the 4-star, which is March 7th. So, I'm gonna preface this by saying that if you get Gepard, he's probably gonna be the best at the job. Just really, it's gonna be obvious, isn't it? But let's get into his actual kit. Standard attack is standard, 110% at the highest on a single enemy. Skill is an offensive ability, deals ice damage equal to a certain percentage, which, to be quite frank with you, 220 is quite high, of Gepard's attack to a single enemy, with a 65% base chance to freeze that enemy for one turn. It says base chance, so this percentage here to freeze the enemy is alterable by your effect hit rate. Bear that in mind. And then while frozen, the enemy will take ice dot damage equal to a certain percentage of Gepard's attack each turn. Pretty alright ability for a defensive character. You just have a decent amount of damage with a chance to freeze, and that chance to freeze can be increased depending on your effect hit rate. And the character, I'm going to make a slight hint that you may actually want to build him for effect hit rate slash tankiness. I'll get into that in the relic set section. But then his ultimate is just apply a shield to all allies, absorbing a specific or a certain percentage of Gepard's defense plus an X amount for 3 turns. That makes him a defense scaling character if you want to go for shield absorption, strength, or power, essentially. 65% of his defense. You're going to maybe want to bump that up to a horn outside. You're going to bump that up to as high as you possibly can, probably to get as much value from that as possible. Just so you can obviously provide a shield to everyone. And that's going to be the part that you use him mainly for, to be quite frank with you. The rest of his kit doesn't really do anything crazy, and his skill isn't that crazy that you use it specifically for the freeze or anything like that. So the main part of Gepard is his burst. It's applying a shield to everyone, so everyone does not take damage anymore, right? They just avoid taking actual damage. So that is the main part of Gepard. So how does the rest of his kit enhance that? Well, his talent is essentially when struck with a killing blow, instead of becoming incapacitated, Gepard's HP immediately restores to a certain percentage. This can only trigger once per battle. He essentially has a self-revive, which is quite standard for a tank character, to be quite frank with you. Especially one that is holding aggro extensively through a trace that he has, which I'll get into in just a second. So he just has a revive. Technique is just he'll, at the start of the battle, apply a shield to everyone, absorbing damage equal to 25% or 24% of his defense plus 96. So you probably won't end up using this one ever, as it just applies a shield to you straight away, which, compared to the other buffs that you can have, this one's quite useless. But as I said, he's gonna be having aggro. How? Well, it's because of his first trace. First trace is Gepard has a higher chance to be attacked by enemies. Flat out, you just get this trace, you have a higher chance of being attacked when Gepard is on the field. So that's what makes him a tank. That's how he's gonna be doing tanky things, and that's why you're gonna need shields, and that's why you have a revive, because obviously Gepard is gonna get jumped by all the enemies. You're gonna want to be able to at least have a failsafe once per battle, and that's what this is. That's what talent number 1 is. And that's how Trace 1 works. Now, Trace 2 is when Unyielding Will is triggered, which is his revive, Gepard's energy is restored to 100%. It's quite alright. You, as Gepard, die. You get revived, and you get 100% energy, so you can instantly cast your ultimate if you really need that last-minute defensive. It's quite good, actually, to be quite frank with you. It's quite a nice touch there. Being able to, essentially, it's kind of like a nice fail-safe comeback, so you might be able to recover greatly if you use this correctly. That's that one. And then Trace 3, Gepard's attack increases by 35% of his current defense. This will refresh at the start of each turn. It's kind of cool, kind of interesting. A bit of an attack increase dependent on his defense. Refreshing at the start of every turn. So if you do like a defense boost through some methods, this will be able to like refresh at the start of his turn every single turn. So it's kind of useful, kind of not useful. It's kind of you know what I mean? So what have we learned so far? Gepard is purely just a shield character. I will say this before we continue on to the Eidolons. Preservation characters may not end up being in your team purely because you have much better options. If I'm to make a bold statement, I'd probably instantly use something like a Clara over a Gepard, because Clara can hold aggro at the same time as being able to deal a lot of damage out, as well as have a lot of survivability. So I'm not sure how much you would probably want to use a preservation character, something like Gepard or something like March 7th. I'm not sure exactly the power. It would really come down to what enemies you're facing. But so far, all you get from this character is a shield. But does the Eidolons change that? Well, Eidolon 1, the base chance of Gepard's skill to freeze enemies increases by 35%, essentially bumps it up to 100% base chance, again, still alterable by effect hit rate, so you may not be exactly 100%, but it is 100% just theoretically, which is fine. You have a chance to freeze them, that's fine, whatever. Eidolon 2, after an enemy frozen by Gepard's skill is unfrozen, their speed is reduced by 20% for 1 turn. It's kind of okay. It's only a 1 turn speed decrease. A bit longer would be better. Maybe like make it 2 turns so it's actually effective. Maybe you can get 2 enemies slowed at a time. That would probably be slightly better. But regardless, you do get you freeze an enemy, and after they're frozen, rather after they're unfrozen, speed reduced by 20. It's okay. Eidolon 3, ultimate +2, as well as basic attack +1, standard. Eidolon 4, when Gepard is in battle, all allies' effect resistance is increased by 20%. This one's okay. This is actually a pretty good one. It's all allies, so a bit more of an area of effect. Everyone is affected by this specific thing, so it's great. I think if it was maybe like 10% effect res and a 10% damage reduction, that would make it really good. Because effect resistance, as great as it can be, as useful as it can be, it's nowhere near as useful as any of the other resistances or kind of like reductions or increases that you can get. So it's kind of okay, but so far it's like most useful Eidolon. Bear that in mind. Eidolon 5 though, skill +2 and basic attack +1. That's fine. And Eidolon 6, when his talent is triggered, Gepard's action is advanced forward by 100%, and he restores extra HP equal to 50% of his max HP. So when he triggers his talent, he'll revive with more HP, and he'll go next turn guaranteed. He'll be the first person to go straight after he dies. So it's kind of like a nice little, if you really want to make a big comeback, you'll be able to do that with Gepard fairly well. So that's that. That's his base kit. Not overly impressive. Its tank units are usually not impressive unless they are super busted. And even in turn-based games, I don't think tank units are overly impressive either. You usually kind of go for something like a pseudo tank. You don't go for a pure tank. Pure tanks don't usually get you much done. So you go for a pseudo tank and like healers and whatnot, because they're just easier to use and better to use and have more bonuses. Gepard doesn't have many bonuses. I think if there was a bit more damage reduction, a bit more damage boosting, maybe passive damage boosting, so there's some retaliation mechanic on whenever he gets attacked, right? Because obviously he has aggro generation through his trace. If there was some sort of retaliation mechanic, some counter mechanic, I think that would be kind of nice there to have for extra damage. But then again, I guess if you need a specific ally to be a complete damage soaker, so to make everyone else just not die, Gepard will probably be your best choice for that very specific situation. But I think in most situations, you get to go for something a bit more DPS heavy, but also still quite tanky, like Clara. But again, a character is not defined by their single-handed kit. They're obviously defined a bit more by also their light cone. Now, Gepard does have a signature one, which is quite good, to be quite frank with you. Increase the wearer's defense by X amount and effect hit rate by X amount, thus making probably his effect hit rate and chance to apply his freeze from his skill 100% if you have this. So that's that. And also increase the wearer for the wearer to be attacked by enemies, which is really good, by the way. So he has his base aggro in his kit, aggro increase, and then his actual like light cone increases his aggro generation. So that's really good. I've got something in my eye here, which is not really doing me any favors. So if you have his light cone, you'll be able to pretty much guarantee that he'll be attacked, which is great. And then when the wearer is attacked, increase their defense by an additional amount until the end of the wearer's turn. So it's really good, to be quite frank with you. If you have his light cone, it's probably going to be the best case scenario for you. Excluding obviously Eidolons, just his base kit and his light cone is going to be really, really good. And essentially he's going to be a force to be reckoned with in terms of sustainability and living. So if you do have this, by all means, and you need a tank, he can get the job done. But just bear in mind that as of right now, does not provide any other bonuses. Now, as for other kind of bits and pieces, other light codes that you may want to use, Texture of Memories, but maybe not. Increase the wearer's effect resistance by a certain percentage. Not that great. It's effect resistance, you don't really need that. And if the wearer is attacked and has no shield, they gain a shield by a certain percentage of their max HP. Gepard is not really known for having max HP scaling. He's a defense scaler, so that's probably already bad. And then if the wearer has a shield when attacked, the damage received is lowered. So it's very back and forth in terms of being good here, so I wouldn't recommend Textured Memories. Moment of Victory is going to be his best one for 4-star. Sorry, 5-star, my apologies. But for 4-star, probably any of them, to be quite frank. Increased wearer's defense after entering the battle, increased damage resistance of all allies. So you just get all over resistances, right? So that's day 1 of a new life is great. Landau's Choice, the wearer is more likely to be attacked, but damage taken is reduced by a certain percentage. Another great choice. And then This Is Me, increase the wearer's defense by a certain percentage, increase the damage of the wearer when they use their ultimate by a certain percentage of the wearer's defense. This can only apply 1 time per enemy target, right? So these 4 here are already a better choice, in my opinion, than Texture of Memories, by the way. So if you have either Day 1 of a New Life or Landau's Choice, go for one of these ones. If you have neither of those two, This Is Me is a fine choice just because of the defense increase. But obviously, his best and slow is going to be in the Moment of Victory. But that's that. And let's say we take this into consideration. He's so far slightly boosted in terms of value. Let's say his base kit comboed with his signature light cone, he's boosted in value. But again, it's still really hard to recommend him over anything like a Clara or even just like a DPS. Honestly, just rocking a DPS and having a healer on the side instead of a Gepard, or rather having a DPS instead of Gepard, whilst having a healer to support that, is probably a lot better. Gepard needs a bit more like a substance in his actual kit, in my opinion, to really add a lot of value. But as for relics, if we really do want to build a Gepard relic sets, you have 2 choices. Depends on really what you want to go for. If you want to go for a bit more of a team-oriented Gepard, where he's making himself tanky, but also the whole team has a stronger shield applied to them, Knight of Purity Palace 4 set is going to be your go-to choice. It's a defense increase, which makes his scaling a lot higher on his burst, which applies the shield, as well as the 4 set increases the max damage that can be absorbed by shields that are created by Gepard, so his shield is just infinitely stronger, which is great. But if you want to go for a bit more, Gepard is tankier. If you're going to go for a bit more of the high aggro build, where Gepard is the only one being damaged, essentially, then you're going to want to go for Guarding of Wuthering Snow. This one reduces damage taken by a flat 8%, which is great. And then 4 set at the beginning of the turn, if the wearer's HP is equal to or less than 50%, you heal a max, or rather, you restore 8% of your max HP and 5 energy. The reason this one is just because it's solo tankiness. You have healing, damage reduction. Probably 8% is higher value than 12 defense. So just bear that in mind, as well as a small self-healing mechanic, which is always good. So those are the 2 different situations that you'd probably want to use these ones in. But generally speaking, both of them are viable in most situations regardless, right? As for planetary ornaments, it's kind of obvious. You probably want to go for the defense one. Bellow Bog of the Architects. Increase the wearer's defense by 15, and when effect hit rate is 50% or higher, the wearer gains an extra 15 defense. This one's just going to be great because, well, you already kind of want to go into a bit of effect hit rate with Gepard. You want to kind of have it as a substat because, well, of the freezing mechanic that he has. You kind of want to make that sure it's a guarantee. And so getting it to 50%, you also get an extra 15% defense. Well, there's no bad path to that, right? Absolutely no detriments to that. So Bellabog of the Architects is going to be his best planetary ornament. But as for the other ones, you can try to run Pan-Galactic Commercial Enterprise or Talia Kingdom of Banditry if you want to get those specific effects, effect hit rate or break effect. But just stick with the Bellabog of the Architects. It's just going to be your best choice here. Unfortunately, this has been a very, very simple and very short analysis because Gepard, I don't believe, is going to be a lot of people's fan favorite character, if I'm going to be completely honest. He just doesn't provide much. I do think that he may get some changes, may get some buffs, maybe something in the Eidolons, maybe a bit more on the actual traces. Some of the traces aren't that great. Trace 2 could be something else, and Trace 3 could definitely be something else. To be a bit more of a team player, because as we know, I don't think he's quite doing his role, which is defensive support and tank. He is doing the tank part, but I just don't think he's doing the defensive support part enough. There's not, like, in his base kit at least, there's not much other than just the shield that he applies, which is, you know, defensive support. The only other part that he has is just the ally resistance increase, but then again, effect resistance increase, but then again, effect resistance increase is not the most useful defensive part of a character. So, regardless of that, if you do get a Gepard, do know that he will be an absolute tank unit to get. He'll be taking aggro from the enemies, just baseline, and he has a revive baseline. So obviously he'll be an actual good unit to chuck on at the very start of the game, but I don't expect his longevity to last for a super long time, because I feel like he's going to be overshadowed by the raw damage that you can get from other characters, or the raw supporting factors that you can get from other characters. It's just going to be much higher than what Gepard can offer you in the long run, right? So that's the Gepard analysis. Unfortunately, not a positive one. Hopefully he'll be fixed in the future and maybe tweaked a bit more to make it a bit more viable. But if you guys did enjoy, if you guys did like the video, and also subscribe to the channel. And if you like this kind of content, stick around. We've got more analysis coming, and more characters in the future. So yeah, hope you guys enjoyed. Have a great day, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace out.